Lots of brands are, tapping into this sense of discovery, and they're doing it really well. I mean, Vankel, Lee, Converse, Gap, Meters, Bonway, they're really tapping into this sense of, I'm at a time of experimentation. This is all new. This is all great. But they are making a mistake. And the mistake is they think that these people are all about wanting to just break free and do things. But they are confusing experimentation with commitment. Because actually these people are just trying to identify and discover who they are and what they can be. So that photo in the frame is a blogger in China where every day she has a dramatically different look. And she's not done that for the blog. That's literally how she dresses. And if anyone's gone to Shanghai or Beijing or Guangzhou or anywhere else, you walk down the street and you will see some of the most weird coloured fashion you've ever seen since you went to Milan in 1986. It's weird. And yet it works because people are just trying stuff. It's not about committing to, I'm going to be a gothic, or I'm going to be a rock and roll, or I'm going to be high fashion. They mix and match because they're looking for something that they can find their identity with. Because at the end of the day, even the post-90s generation, with all this digital opportunity, are fundamentally brought up in the values of China, which I said, progression, group acceptance, filial responsibility, which is why the schooling system sets them from the beginning in a formulaic approach of what you must do. So sure, they've got more freedom. Sure, they're experimenting and expressing themselves more. But fundamentally, they need to make sure that everything they do fits in with the cultural expectations. And anyone that comes in and thinks that the Chinese are just arrogant literally doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. I get very upset about this because I represent this part of the world and I care very deeply about this part of the world, and they're amazing people. And the amount of people that just go in and treat them as if they will buy anything is a disgrace. They are the quickest learners and they're the quickest developers. And what's happening is, because of this conservatism, you're getting a lot of brands that basically, and it happens everywhere, but especially in Asia, where they use celebrities. And they use celebrities, I call it KOL as the key opinion leader. And in China, you have to pay them as well. You don't even get them free, you have to buy them. But the thing that's really interesting is all these companies go, let's get a key opinion leader, because if everyone likes them, it doesn't matter if they don't like the brand, it's acceptable for them to buy. And what happens is all these brands get, this is Jay Chow, who basically would turn up at the opening of an envelope. It sponsors everything. And so the actual celebrity becomes more famous than the brand, and they'll just go straight away. It's the worst brand building because it's lazy brand building. You're basically committing your future to a celebrity rather than doing something with value. And that's why in China, and this is the bit where I think if you understand the context culture, it becomes fascinating. If you want to create culture, so with Nike, my job with Nike is to make China actually want to play sport rather than just watch sport. The only way you can do it is actually change culture, as opposed to just try and fit in with it. You've got to take a stand and you've got to do it. And what does that mean? It means you have to do shit rather than say shit. You have to do stuff. You have to do stuff so the person's frame of reference culturally is, that's what you should do, it's okay. Which means you don't rely on advertising, you physically do something that people can feel, touch, and get reference from. So what do I mean by all this? To actually create culture, which is the only way that you can actually work within the Chinese context, but to the Western standards, is to acknowledge you have to create a frame of reference. If you don't create the frame of reference by doing stuff rather than saying stuff, people can't move forward, because the need to be part of the group acceptance of the culture means that people can't take that step forward. The implications of thousands of years of being told this is too great. So, the first one is to create behavior, you have to create a new frame of reference. That frame of reference must be validated so that people will be engaged. And when we say validated, it's not doing an ad saying, just go and do it. It's actually doing something so people see the brand is committing to it, rather than just asking you to take a leap of faith. And then, literally, when it is accepted, people will develop that culture at a pace that's faster than Superman. But so many brands come in thinking, I'm going to get China to like this. And all they do about it is actually do an ad. That's not how you change culture. So there's huge opportunities, but you have to understand the context to do it. Otherwise, basically, you're just going in with the blinkers on. Which leads to the third and final point. Status is a price point. I cannot tell you how many times I smash my head against the corner of a desk when I hear somebody go, yeah, it's really expensive, so people will buy it. And I'll go, like, It's insane. Don't get me wrong, people in China love luxury. We all know that. But this attitude that as long as it's expensive, people will buy. Has anyone been to China in this room? Okay. So there is a shitload of shops there. Let me tell you, they are spoilt for choice. So it's way, way, way more than just a price point. But lots of people say it. And the reason it's way more than a price point is it's the most brand literate generation on earth. They know about every brand because everything is about conspicuous consumption. And you are labeled by what you have. And if you have the wrong label, you are screwed. Now, that would indicate that you'd go, well, surely, Rob, that means then the most expensive thing is the most important thing. In the old days, maybe, but that's changed because of basically the fact that not everyone's going to be a billionaire in China, and also the fact is there's so much choice and change. The reality is when I talk to people, they all talk about authenticity. Authenticity counts. If you're expensive and you're authentic, that's all that matters. But they're missing the point because actually what matters in China is actually social value. It is the momentum a brand has at any given time, which is why people will constantly evaluate, should I buy this brand because it has the momentum of the entire culture behind it, or is it a brand that's just an old brand that maybe was good once but isn't cool anymore? Apple and Samsung are going through a really interesting time. Because at the moment, and let's get some context here, Apple are hardly on the fucking scrap heap, okay? But the momentum behind that brand is not as what it once was. And Samsung are leveraging that because people are now going, I need to be seen with the brand that's the most powerful. To give you a really bad analogy and story, years ago, I was very fortunate to be, I did some work with Chelsea Football Club, and I'm not a Chelsea Football Club, I'm a Nottingham Forest fan. They're amazing. But what was interesting, they showed me a letter because Birmingham City, who also wear blue, had just been relegated from the Premiership. And the Indonesian Birmingham City Football Club, fan club, had written to Chelsea saying, Birmingham have got relegated, you wear blue, can we become your supporters? It's all about who's got the social value at that any given time. And so what's really a lovely quote here is that if you have to justify your decision, it's not worth buying. It really is that whole niche category or the rebellion, well, rebellion doesn't work in China, but the whole niche category, that doesn't work either. Because niche means you'd have to explain your decision. If you have to explain your decision, you have lost because you're doing something that has not been accepted. And that is a really interesting mindset because you get lots of brands that come in and say, oh, let's be niche. And you go, no, we have to find a way to actually make it have value, and it's not based on how exclusive it is, because real exclusivity is measured in a very different way to Western versions of exclusivity. And the reality, and this is why I love my job, and especially I love my job on Nike, for example, is that social value can change like that. It can change because of competitive activity. It can change because you fucked up. It can change because of the entire group have suddenly decided we prefer something else. And if you feel that the peer group likes something else, everyone just drops it like a stone and moves on to the next thing. And it can change because of myth and legend. I don't know if it's still the case, but it used to be the most profitable Louis Vuitton store on earth was in Macau, a small place off Hong Kong, which is a gambling metropolis, bigger than Las Vegas in revenue now. Because there was a myth that if you bought a Louis Vuitton satchel before you went gambling, you would win. I spent 18 months of my life trying to find where that story came from, and I couldn't. And it's obviously not necessarily true, but my God, people would roll in, and they still do. A myth and legend can change everything in an instant. And the thing that I find really interesting is we got all these people that say it's just about the price point, but it's far more complex than that. And then you get to the point of the fact that, as I said, not everyone in China is going to be able to be billionaires. And what we're seeing more and more is that you can buy basically luxury. Anyone can buy luxury. But what's becoming more and more important is respect. The values that people can be put on. And let's be honest, we all reframe our status based on what we think makes us look good. Countries do it. You know, I'm from England, so I look down on the Welsh because that's, you know, I have to. But you know what? The Welsh will go, yeah, that's fine, but at least we're not French. And then the French go, yeah, well, at least we're not German. Everyone looks for that social value. But what's coming out is the values in China are starting to become more important. And where people think China just makes cheap stuff, let me tell you, it's actually because of the promise the government have made to increase the standard of living, it's going to actually change that to quality of stuff because they can't always keep the prices low. It's all going to evolve. But this value, this emotional value is actually becoming really important, not just the price point. Price is important, don't get me wrong, luxury, but value is important. So I want to show you one, oh no, don't, it's the next thing after this. So the brands, the thing that I find really fascinating for the brands I work with is, sure, we work with some brands that have very expensive products, but we're saying the brands that actually lead social change are the brands that actually are really driving fundamental differences in attitudes and behavior. And the beauty is, from a competitive attitude, is you might be able to copy a price point or a feature, but you can't copy a brand that is leading value, cultural value, and reflections of how you should behave. So we're seeing more and more things where the brands that have a point of view on cultural attitudes and saying, we don't know if this is right, and we'll stand for this. Because they're doing it, they've validated the ability for people to start talking about it and start looking at what they want to be, as opposed to just what do they want to own.